This is WFO Radio.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to another week of WFO Radio. I'm Joe Castello, and we're going to talk drag racing. We've got NHRA's Alan Reinhart going to jump on here if you're watching out there on Facebook or YouTube or Twitter or Twitch or our WFO Facebook group, which is getting a lot of love, by the way. The group has been like secret society for our listeners for a long time, just kind of posting funny stuff, occasionally talking drag racing, whatever. And now that we've been doing these live streams, everybody is jumping in there. So you're welcome to jump in our WFO radio group as well. If you were with us last week, we had just, I think, one of the best weeks ever. We had John Force on Thursday. That's still up there on Facebook and in the archive on the WFO radio app. You can find it on our Facebook page, Twitter account, etc., YouTube. But then on Friday, we had Gary Selzy on the show. Gary Selzy, Ron Capps, Chad Head, Angel, Alan, just a great group of people. And it was a true happy hour. It was a lot of fun, a little crazy. And that's waiting for you as well. Now, I know today is early week, right? And it's kind of hard to get into the happy hour atmosphere. Just wait till like 4 p.m. and you'll be ready to rock and roll. And I'm going to talk with Alan about that a little bit because, Alan was there for all of that. He was in that era and experienced it. And I'm going to talk a little bit about that. NHRA schedule announcement, supposedly coming this week. I don't want to get too excited. The way I always like to look at it is they're going to drop it as soon as we get off the air. That's the way it always has worked for the 10 years plus we've been doing WFO. We have been, when we get off the air, that's when the news breaks and we talk about it next week. Good news is we'll be here Thursday. Thursday is kind of cool. We're going to have Robin Lawrence from Holley Performance on the show. And I want to welcome Holley Performance Products as a sponsor of WFO Radio for the next few weeks. Holley has been the undisputed leader in fuel systems for over 115 years. Holley carburetors powered every Monster Energy NASCAR Cup Series team and nearly every NHRA Pro Stock champion for 4 decades. And now Holley EFI products power these cars and are dominating the performance world. As a single solution or partnered with other products from Holley brands, they can give you the edge you'll need over the competition. We want to welcome Holley. Go to holley.com to find out all they offer. And yes, Robin Lawrence, who has been heading the project. We had Robin on when NHRA switched to Holley EFI a couple of years ago. He laid the groundwork on WFO Radio. That interview is still in our archive. It's been amazing to see how that happened, right? The learning process. And now it's not something you really even think about anymore. And that is the point. Other folks who make the show possible, super proud to have Total Seal piston rings on board. Total Seal, we got a brand new Hidden Horsepower episode for you podcast listeners out there. Apple Podcast, Spotify. Go sign up, be ready. Thursday morning, new episode, head of Joe Gibbs Racing Engines, Mark Cronquist, going to be on the show along with Lake Speed Jr. They're going to talk about, obviously, the world of engine building on the NASCAR side, but he's also going to tell some humiliating stories about Jason Line, which is reason that our listeners will probably go on there. So Total Seal, check them out. They've got all kinds of great stuff, whether it be a Top Fuel car, Formula One car, stock eliminator car, or your bracket engine. Total Seal doing some great things. Really appreciate. They're not humiliating stories. They're just, the 1 or 2 funny stories about Jason Line, in addition to all kinds of great information about high performance engine building, things that work, things that didn't work. You can find it at Hidden Horsepower on Apple Podcast, Spotify. Frank Hawley's Drag Racing School. Frank and Lana Hawley, good to hear. They've got classes going on. Smaller classes than previous, social distancing and taking care to do the right things, but classes once again. So if you're looking to become a champion drag racer or improve your skill, hone your skills, if you've never won a bracket race, been bracket racing for 20 years, there's a lot of things they can help you with. The psychological side to it, go to frankhawley.com to find out more information. Samtech.edu. The School of Automotive Machinists and Technology. Of course, start your education at full speed. And you might be noticing a trend, right? Self-improvement. Learn to do something better that you can then power yourself for the rest of your life. And that's what Samtech is all about. The family over there, Brian Massengill, Judd Linda, everybody over there has really done great things to improve the school and expand the school and now take the next generation of crew chiefs, crew members out there. If you're a young person, you like working with your hands, you don't want to be in a cubicle, like an office space for the rest of your life, go to samtech.edu and check it out. They've got financial aid for those that qualify. It's amazing stuff. And of course, our great buddy, Marvin Rodak, who has been putting up, dare I say, coffee porn up on his social media accounts of the roasting beans and just all kinds of great stuff. It's definitely to get you jazzed up for a little great coffee from Marvin Rodak, rodakscoffeeandgrills.com, 817-924-6821. Before we bring on Alan, I want to give away something for free, talking about WFO Radio stickers. If you're a listener and you love the show, Castello Media, WFO stickers, P.O. Box 848-353, Pembroke Pines, Florida, 33084. That's the address on the screen. You fill out a self-addressed stamped envelope. Please make it a larger sized envelope. It doesn't have to be huge, but at least not a tiny envelope. And I might throw in, where are they? Where are the masks, man? Here they are. Here it is. And if I've got space, maybe I'll even throw in a WFO Radio logo mask for those of you who want it. And some people are like, well, I don't wear the mask. Well, that's fine. You don't have to wear the mask. But some places you have to wear the mask, so you should have the mask nearby, just in case you got to go into the liquor store and buy a little vino or something like that. All right, without further ado, he joins us now. He's been doing all kinds of tech bits and all kinds of good stuff on NHRA social media feeds, and he joins us now. We're happy to have him each week, Mr. Alan Reinhart. What's up, AR? How you doing?
Hey, Joe, I'm well. You know, it occurs to me, I don't have a WFO sticker or a face mask. I mean, really? What's it going to got to do?
Yeah, you know what? I think, I don't know, you might be getting one like any second, because I sent out a big batch. Yes, I sent out a big batch the other day, and I believe it was in there. And I think a WFO t-shirt should have come your way pretty recently, too. Did that not happen?
I did get that. Yes, I did. Okay. And I believe I thought I thanked you for that. If I didn't, then my sincere apologies, and thank you very much for the t-shirt.
Well, no. So you know what? That's not even what it's all about. See, now we're talking personal stuff, folks. And that's why a lot of people log in, because we've got the, we've known each other for a long time now. Alan Reinhart has got, I don't know if Alan wants to rock WFO gear. He's on the show all the time. He sacrifices like a third of his life for the show. I don't know if he's going to be wearing logo stuff. So I'm always a little shy to, here's gear, Alan. Here's stuff, Alan. I always use you up already. So you're going to get a bunch of stuff now that you've indicated.
Now, when I'm in my shop, I'm almost always wearing a t-shirt. Unless I'm doing some video stuff for NHRA or whatever, but I'm almost always wearing a t-shirt. So yeah, I'll absolutely rock this thing around here. I'm not going to wear it on your show, because if people are watching the show, what's the point of going, hey, look at me, it's WFO on the WFO show? They already know that. So, I would wear it places where people would see it and go, what's that? And then we could direct them towards the show. I had to dig into the archives for the t-shirt for last Friday for Happy Hour. And that was,
and we're going to start here.
That was one of those inside joke things, The 5 people that knew what it was all thought it was funny as hell, and nobody else knew what it was. So I'm okay with it.
Well, and you don't have to tell us, but maybe like an allusion to what it was all about. But before we move beyond t-shirt protocol, thank you for recognizing the t-shirt protocol rules of the world of promotional t-shirts. I have friends that I gave them a t-shirt, and you'll see them at the track, right? And they won't be wearing the t-shirt. And I don't want to get mad like the first time. Like, hey, what's up with the t-shirt? But there was a time where I was like, hey, what's up with the t-shirt? And they're like, oh, man, I love that shirt, so I saved it. Well, what do you mean you saved it? Oh, I've got it put away. Well, what do you mean it's put away? Oh, I don't want to ruin it. No, that's not the point of it, for you to put it in your closet and save it for when you pass away and your kids throw it away. You're supposed to wear it out in places that might be interested to hear about the show. So you get it. Now, let's, the NHRA schedule may be ready to drop. I'm joking that it's going to drop right after we get off the air, because that's happened to us so many times in the past. But
I'm hearing that there are just a couple of more details. One of the issues that we talked about at Weeks Past is you can't just say, okay, guys, here's the deal. Because if, just to use the state that you live in, the state I live in, right? Sure. If they say, okay, here's the schedule, and Arizona's not quite ready for that yet, then you don't want to put it out there and have to make a change. Or if you put the schedule out and go, Florida QBD, and then Florida goes, what's the problem? We've been ready for this. And then, you've got to go back and backtrack on it a little bit. So my understanding is a couple of details that they're working on, but I think we're going to get it pretty soon.
Well, I'm hoping it's this week, but whenever it is, it is. And we've been so patient to this point. It's like, who cares if it's another week or 2 more weeks? We have waited all this time. We know it's coming. Let's let them get it ironed out, and we'll deal with it whenever it comes. And we're all going to be super excited. We're seeing drag racing happen. PDRA this past weekend, Cars on Track, people learning the new ways to travel and how to be and allow those things to keep going. I have no doubt that the NHRA folks will adapt to whatever is out there as rapidly as is possible. And we're excited. But in the meantime, though, I want to double back now. Friday, first of all, Thursday had John Force on. He was great. But Friday, it was a treat for me to see you, Gary, Angel, Chad, the people who lived through the era behind the scenes. And now that I'm kind of behind the scenes in our modern era, and so I get a good framework of what the fun is like, but to hear you guys talking about what it was like then, and me to be able to imagine those times and hear the stories firsthand along with the listeners, like, man, that was fantastic. Thank you for doing it.
Every era is special. When I started getting heavily into it, late 80s, and then started traveling quite a bit in the early 90s and since, we had some big times, and we had a lot of fun, and there were a lot of things that, that were special to that era. But you always heard about, in the 60s, it was really, and in the 70s, you have no idea what it was like. And now I think some of that, and even J.R. Todd to a point, got into some of the, some of that stuff was before my time, but the era that we're in right now has got its own adventure taking place and its own happenings and its own stuff. So 20 years from now, people are going to look back and go, that was really fun. Those guys are back there around, 2010, 2020. They really had the wild life, and it's just not the same as it used to be because it's constantly evolving. But, as far as the timetable goes, I knew Gary fairly well when he was racing the alcohol cars because I was involved with the alcohol cars at the time when Bob Fry and I were doing the Sportsman Challenge shows way back when. And so I knew him a little bit there. I was very close with the Johnson family for the same reason, because when they were ruling the roost in alcohol, that was when I was doing television in alcohol. They were obviously a big part of it. And they were always very open and very helpful. If I wanted to learn something, if I wanted, needed to do a tech piece, so I got to know them fairly well. And then when the two of them came together and so much of the world was going, who's this Gary Selsey guy? I was pretty fortunate because I did know him and I did have a little bit of a connection with him. And, over time, he and I had many a conversation where, the two of us would, I literally at times would go by the pit area and go, hey, Gary, we need you for a thing. And he'd jump in a golf cart. We'd go hide out on the other side of the racetrack and smoke a cigarette, because even when he was sponsored by Winston, his wife didn't particularly want him smoking, and Alan wasn't crazy about it. So he was kind of a sneaky smoker at the time. But and we got to know each other fairly well there. And then he mentioned a couple of things when he got involved with some charity stuff and some other things and reached out. I was always willing to help with that. So I'm pretty fortunate that I've been able to know Gary all this time and still keep in touch with him. He was racing in Tucson a week ago with his youngest son, Gio, and he and I went and had lunch and caught up a little bit just a couple of days before he was on your show. But no, that era was fun. There's no doubt about it. But if you think that the guys that are out there, the young guys now that are out there that are living the dream, they're chasing it, aren't having fun, then you're just not paying attention. It's different, but it is still, it's always going to be an interesting era when you travel the road racing, whether it's with NHRA, whether it's the World of Outlaws, whether it's NASCAR, I don't care. If you travel the world racing, you're always going to be living an adventure. And the era may change, but there's no such thing as a bad time to do it.
Well, and I feel good about that because my experience, maybe 10 years down the road, I'll be popping on somebody else's show talking about these times. And I've had some great times. There have been some hijinks. There's been some fun, nothing quite, nothing illegal, nothing terrible, nothing bad, but just fun times that I've really enjoyed, places and things, moments that I've thought like, wow, this is incredible. And I feel like it stands up. But one thing we don't have, though, is T. Wayne Robertson. That was a fantastic story when Gary did the voice and, the Winston days and, cigarettes, right? Like you don't smoke anymore. Like I think most have learned like, man, all right, we're in a new era now. But at the time that was a thing. And when Gary did the voice and said something along these lines, and I encourage you, everybody watch it, right? Angel wanted a lobster. And she thought, I better not, it might be too expensive. For the sponsor, I shouldn't. And she's like, listen, we got a lot of problems at the R.J. Reynolds Tobacco Company, but money is not one of them.
Money ain't one of them.
Money ain't one of them. That was fantastic. It like just nailed to me. It nailed what it was like.
Well, one of the great things about the Winston era, and certainly, from a budget standpoint, they didn't seem to have any issues with anything. But it was not uncommon at all for Winston to just come out and give everybody something, a jacket, a wine bottle. Matter of fact, one of the things that they gave away were these big duffel-style travel bags. I mean, big, large. And when they had them made and brought them out to the Winter Nationals, whatever year it was, if I'm not mistaken, it was, I guess it would have been 2001 because they had the 50th year of NHRA logo on them. I still have mine. But they didn't just go order 500 of these things and go, hey, everybody grab one. They were personalized. I mean, I was a not quite new kid on the block, but I mean, I'm, the number 3 or number 4 guy on the announcing staff. And mine came personal, got my name on it. And all the guys on the safety safari and all of the guys got one of these things. But that was one of the things about Winston was that, they were all in. If you look at still to this day, a lot of the racetracks are red and white because if you had a racetrack and you needed to paint it, if you called T. Wayne and said, hey, look, we're looking to paint our racetrack, he said, if you paint it red and white, I will send you the paint. And literally would send a couple of pallets of paint. Every racetrack back in the day had a Winston lane, the scoreboard sponsors. Every racetrack, one of them had a Winston lane. They were very heavily involved from the national level all the way down to the grassroots level. And of course, back then, they sponsored the entire series. We didn't have the Mellow Yellow series and the Lucas series and the E3 Pro mods and the Samtec factory stocks. And we had Winston drag racing. And the stock eliminator champion was just as big a champion as the top fuel champion at the time. And he was still a Winston champion as well. So it was a different era. It was a lot of fun to be around in that time. And yeah, the Winston guys they were not shy when it was time to buy dinner. When it was time to go entertaining. Sometime if you're talking to Dave Densmore, one of the old-time media guys, ask him about the scoring banquet.
Okay.
And it was a Winston thing that they took all the media guys out to a very highbrow dinner that sometimes turned into a very highbrow food fight. But the whole objective of the thing was just to be loose and have fun and goof off. There's a classic story of the check being signed at the end of the night one time and a restaurant manager coming into the private dining room and going, what the hell? These guys are called the law. Well, and they said, here's the check, sir. And the guy went, no problem. Welcome anytime. Yeah, invite him back next Tuesday. But they had a lot of fun and they certainly weren't afraid to pay for their fun.
Okay, and so now we're talking about the Winston days, and you've got experience. I lived it as a fan. I think we all, so I've said it already. I mean, I went up and got cigarettes. I was like 10, right? But for my dad smoked Winston. We were fans of Winston drag racing. I wore a Winston jacket to middle school, and I got sent home. But I wasn't even thinking about that. And just so you know, I never smoked, right? Like to this day, so whatever it was, it didn't work on me. I love drag racing. And I was happy that they did what they did, but I don't smoke, right?
I think that there's a whole lot of people that, your age group, your generation that came up, and Winston meant racing.
Yes.
When you put the TV on, you had Winston drag racing, you had Winston Cup racing. They had Virginia Slims tennis. They had so many other things that they were involved in, Vantage Golf. But for such an era, Winston meant racing. And in all the times that I was around and worked with them, and even, so obviously spending time on a microphone, you've got a chance to do some influencing if you want to do it. But Winston was always very adamant about, we don't ever want to encourage somebody to smoke. But if you smoke, we'd like to encourage you to smoke Winston's. If you don't want to smoke, don't smoke. And that was never an issue. There was never, it was never everybody have cigarettes. Here's your stuff to try. Their deal was simply, if you smoke, we would like you to smoke ours. In the Winston Suite was a classic example when they would have, VIPs or people come up and, you could take a guest up there. If you walked in with a pack of Marlboros, they would very politely come over and hand you a pack of Winston's and just say, look, just try these. That's all we're saying. If you're going to smoke anyway, we'd like you to consider our brand. Just like Ford doesn't tell everybody, you need to drive. But they say, hey, if you want to buy a car, we want you to buy one of ours. Just consider our brand. And, that's what they were in it for. But yeah, there was, like I said, there was a whole generation, I think, that Winston meant racing. It didn't mean cigarettes. It meant racing.
That's me. That it meant racing. the other
when
thing.
things change and things evolve, obviously when Coca-Cola comes along and gets involved, starting with Powerade, that opened up a whole lot of new doors for NHRA, because in the Powerade era, now all of a sudden, you didn't have to hide from kids, right? I mean, that was one thing towards the end, especially a big deal with Winston. When Richie Stevens won his first race, he wasn't old enough to smoke, so he couldn't put a Winston hat on in a winter circuit. But when Coca-Cola got involved in Powerade, then that opens up a whole new avenue of stuff that we can do, because you didn't have to hide from the kids. One thing that Winston, I don't want to say scared of, but when the Junior Drag Racing League started becoming a thing way back when, the guys from Winston were pretty adamant about, hey, look, when you've got 10-year-old kids out there on a racetrack, I don't want to hear about the Winston lane. Make it the left lane. Make it the spectator lane. Make it the whatever. But they didn't want to be seen as pitching towards kids that young. And so that was, a little bit of an issue for them. Obviously, no issue whatsoever with the Coca-Cola company through whichever brand they were doing. But that, it started a different era, and things change, and things evolve, and you move on.
And obviously, we love the partnership with Coca-Cola and Mellow Yellow in particular. I'm thrilled because I actually, I am able to be influenced depending on what it is. But I liked Mellow Yellow before. Right. Like, whereas the Full Throttle brand is an energy drink, which I'm not too into energy drinks, and I'd have it, but it wouldn't be something I would have on a regular basis because I don't drink energy drinks. But Mellow Yellow is something that I drink. And so I was super excited to be able to talk about it. Mellow Yellow drag racing, go on yellow. I feel like it worked real well. What's another interesting angle that I'm sure has been covered and discussed since we're here, how the Winston folks spread out through motorsports, right? They worked for Winston and then they ended up working in motorsports, like in many different tracks, for Bristol, for instance, and brought everything they learned in that business and just went gangbusters for motorsports in certain areas, certain regions, certain tracks, facilities, etc. Benefited greatly from the knowledge they gained.
Well, when T. Wayne was running the show, he was all about relationships. He didn't want to just send a guy a check and make sure, hey, send me a picture when you get my sign up. He wanted to be there. He wanted to help. He wanted to, if there was something you needed, reach out. If you needed advice, if you needed guidance, whatever, maybe you just had 6 rainouts in a row and you needed a couple of bucks to get you through the rest of the summertime. Wayne was the kind of guy that would help with that. But he was all about relationships, and he really taught all of his people that. And yeah, when they left SME, they were in very high demand for 2 reasons. 1, because they were very knowledgeable about sales, about marketing, and about promotion. And 2, because they had all these relationships. Nobody from SME ever had to walk into any racing organization and say, hi, my name's Alan. I'd like to give you a resume. Because when you walked into the guy's office, he already knew who you were. He knew what you were capable of. He knew what you did for him when you were working for them. And he knew what you could do for him if you worked for him. And, you mentioned they are all over the place. I mean, Steve Page out of Sonoma was a former Winston guy, if I'm not mistaken. Chris Powell at Las Vegas certainly is. The guy that was running Virginia Motorsports Park 10 years ago was. Every one of those guys ended up somewhere in management in racing or racetracks, because they knew how to sell, they knew how to promote, and they knew how to build relationships. And that's what it's really all about.
That is what it's all about. All right. So, and there it is, a blast from the past. Thank you for participating. We did have a good time. This was my favorite picture of the whole deal, though. When Angel, because the happy hour show, we got to have a lady on there, first of all, otherwise it's not real happy hour. And second of all, to hear Angel's stories and Gary's stories and the fun that they had, it was a good time. But you want to hear, there is a downside, though. Do you want to hear the downside?
Sure.
Normally I wouldn't say this, right? And this might not, I got a voicemail like, a minute after the show, right? Like it came in a minute after the show. Unknown number. It was Force. He was trying to figure out how to get on the show, and it just didn't, it didn't work out the time. It was like, can I still get on? And it was over. So we did maybe miss out on some sort of craziness, but the good news is that John says he's going to come on and Gary says he's going to submarine him. So some happy hour show in the future will hopefully have that. John
probably wants to tell his side of the ice chest story, because that was
yeah. Now, some people wanted to know, well, the ice chest story, the airplane story, but someone did ask, okay, the T-shirt, like, what can you tell us about that? It's like, how inside was it?
It was pretty inside. There is a little friendly cult. It still exists, although not quite as big as it used to be. That is the Fraternal Union of Crew Members. And you couldn't just say, hey, I'm a member. You literally had to go to a meeting. Somebody had to sponsor you. They had to vote on you. And that's how you got into the Fraternal Union of Crew Members. There were a few drivers that were involved in it, but not very many. For the most part, you had to be a crewman if you were a driver that worked on the car. And it was, I don't know, cult, secret society, just kind of a fun little private club, basically. And the shirt that I was wearing was from 1998. One of the things with the Fraternal Union of Crew Members was Rule 51. And Rule 51 means I'm over it. And it doesn't matter what it is, right? If your car's on fire, if your tractor's upside down, if, you've just got 6 flat tires, if you did it, and all, Rule 51. And that was the blanket coverall. So that was the T-shirt for the year in 1998. And the logo on the back was made famous by Gary when he climbed out of his car on fire in the middle of the racetrack one time, took the shoulders down on his fire suit, and the logo on the back of the shirt was what was taking up the TV screen about this big. And the Fraternal Union of Crew Members is known by its acronym.
Yes.
And if you can figure out what that is, then
yes.
You get the idea.
That is hysterical and fun. And there you go. Thank you for
And
that.
the acronym on the back of that shirt is in great big letters across the middle, which was the problem.
Yes, that is it's only 3. Fraternal Union of Crew Members makes perfect sense. So some people checking in with information. Eric Olson out there in Oregon. He is one of our weekly viewers, listeners. He wants to know if Ryan Harem is back drag racing. That's a good question. I don't know what I haven't gotten an update from Ryan. Maybe you have.
Actually, I have not talked to him in probably a month. I've talked to him a few times after the accident. And he was, recovering and doing well. And it was actually interesting because he, at the time, kind of like my buddy Chuck, who crashed the Mustang earlier, is all of a sudden very interested in, is there something more that we can do in these things? Whether it's a Ford seat like the Nitro cars and the Pro Stock guys have, or maybe even something else, because in both cases, in Ryan's case and in Chuck's case, the roll cage in the car held up fine. But the driver got the snot beat out of him, bounced around inside the roll cage. And so the determination of, is there a better way to do this? And I think there's at least going to be some people looking at that. But Ryan certainly is planning a comeback. I don't know how soon, but, I'll reach out to him this week and I'll have a report for you by the time we chat next Tuesday.
Exactly. Mark out there, did I have to have my dad get a handout for the Snake's skull car because I wasn't old enough? I don't know. I think I was old enough at that time. Definitely for the Snake. I don't know. I don't think so. Maybe the skull car was mid 80s. So I was like 12, 13, like that. But I think I could get a handout. You just couldn't get a sample.
Yeah, I think exactly right. The handout, I'm not sure about the skull ones, but the Winstons, I don't believe they said cigarettes anywhere on the handout. I'm sure they had the disclaimer on the back of it, but it was a picture of the Winston car, and it was Winston drag racing. That's what it was. It wasn't Winston cigarettes; it was Winston drag racing.
Do you remember?
It's interesting if we can, expand a little bit.
Sure.
We talk about things that come and go in different sponsor things. The Army for almost 20 years was a big backer of the Youth and Education Services program, where the kids that come out, and literally thousands of kids that come to the racetrack, junior high, high school, some vocational, and we talk about career opportunities. Well, the Army was a huge supporter of that. Now, once the Army went away, all of a sudden there are more schools, there are more people that are interested in bringing kids out, because there were some that were just, we're not going to take our kids out and have them hear an Army sales pitch. We don't want them in the military. And some of the instructors in some of the schools felt strongly enough about that they would not allow their kids to have a day at the races because of the Army's involvement.
Wow.
But now that the Army is no longer a sponsor, they're reaching out. They want to know, hey, how do we get involved? Can we get our kids that like to come out there? And so, with everything that's in place, there's always, things that open up, and there's things that go away, and there's things that change. When you look at, the beer and tobacco sponsors, none of those drivers could ever go visit schools. It just wouldn't have never been allowed. And the companies didn't want it either. Again, Winston wasn't saying, hey, if you're 12 years old, you need to try our cigarettes. So they steered very clear of that. But, new doors open up when, no matter what happens, it looks like, for somebody, it's a bad thing. This one's going away. But there are going to be new opportunities now that come up. And again, for the youth and education services, a number of the instructors would simply not bring their class out to the racetrack because of the Army involvement. They didn't want their kids getting an Army picture, hearing about the Army life, or they just didn't want anything to do with it. But once the Army was no longer involved, now it has grown as far as participation, because there are more people that are like, okay, we want to come out and we want to hear the NHRA message, and we want to hear about Samtech, who is involved, and we want to hear about SEMA, who is very heavily involved, and some of the others that are the trade schools and the people that are involved in this stuff. So, even though obviously losing the Army was not a good thing for Tony Schumacher and NHRA as a whole, they were a big sponsor and a big partner, but it did open up some new doors that just simply were not open before.
More mainstream, and that makes a sense in the end. The Army is for certain types of people, military service, whereas what you're talking about can be for anyone, just like all of these other examples. One door closes, another one opens. John Forrest recently said a lot about that. There's a lot of opening and closing doors right now, and that's a perfect example. But in the end, it's this family-based sport that the way you get in it is because someone you like probably brings you there and shows it to you, and you become passionate about it because you have either a technical knowledge or a curiosity or a desire or a competitive drive, and you certainly like what is there. And then from that point, there's a lot of different ways to go. John Kernan just posted that on NHRA.com, that third scale aero Bob Tasca car. And Neff's in there. They're in the wind tunnel. Like, I found that to be very interesting. And that's rocket science. That's right up there with the technology that every other motorsport is using, except we got to see some of it this time, which was very cool. Third scale, working on the bodies, trying to find efficiency. That is not, t-shirt mechanic stuff. And I think anybody would be proud to have their kid working in a wind tunnel.
Yeah, and there's a lot of opportunities. And that's one of the things that we talk about at Youth and Education Services is, there's so many opportunities no matter what you want to do. I used to do a thing. Tony and I did some presentations together. He certainly did way more than I did. But when we would do a deal where it's like, okay, we got a hat to give away, we got a t-shirt to give away. All right, here's what you got to do. Joe, name a profession that you want to be involved in that I can't tie back to motorsports, or Tony can't tie back to the Army. Go.
But the drag race announcer. No, that doesn't work. The local politician. No, that works. You got that one. Let's see. I got nothing. Teacher.
But, you look at it, they have teachers in the Army. I mean, everything from drill instructors all the way on up. And as a matter of fact, if you go in the Army, you can leave with as much education as you want and no debt. That was part of the Army push. But you look at, they have doctors, they have lawyers, they have technicians. They have pilots, yes, but they also have to have mechanics to fly to make these airplanes fly. They have to have the technicians. If they have, we got a football player. Like, what? You never heard of the Army Navy game? Come on, bring me something better than that. But the fact is that pretty close to everything that you would want to do for a career, you can find some kind of a tie in motorsports. And if you can't, when we were teamed up with the Army, let me tell you, there was about nothing. But for every driver that's out there, there are technicians, there are engineers, there are fabricators, there are social media people, there are advertising people, they're just all over the place. And when we're talking, which is part of the presentation now with Youth and Education Services, it's like, okay, look at all these people. Okay, I don't care what you want to do, but look at all these people that have jobs. I've got an idea about how to make a better wheel. I'm going to make a better wheel. It's going to be fancy. It's going to be snazzy. I've got an idea. Okay, that's one guy. I need to see if it's feasible. So an engineer's got to figure that out. Okay, yeah, this is feasible. It needs to be a little bit more stylish. So maybe you get somebody else involved. Okay, we've got this idea now. What do we do now? You got to make them. So now you've got manufacturers involved. Once they're manufactured, what are you going to do with them? Well, you're going to have to box them up and package them and get them. So that's somebody that's involved. How are you going to sell them? well, we're going to have this ad campaign, or we're going to do this, and we're going to hire somebody to be our spokesman, or so all of those people are involved in the motorsports industry, but they're not driving race cars. They're not maybe even going to the racetrack. But that doesn't mean that they're not involved. And if you like cars and you like motorsports and you can probably find something in your wheelhouse that at least relates to the sport. And that's what the youth and education program is all about. When the high school students come out to the racetrack and it's like, hey, look, you're going to need to be making some decisions here pretty soon, right? Do you go to work? Do you go to college? Do you go to a trade school? Do you go, exactly what are you thinking about doing here? And we just want them to know, hey, think about this. Just think about it. There are a lot of other opportunities if you want to be involved in motorsports, even if you're not going to be the one driving the car, or even if you're not mechanically inclined. There are still opportunities in motorsports and in NHRA if that's something that you're interested in. So anyway, I don't know how we got off on this whole tangent, but that's part of what Youth and Education Services is all about.
Well, I think the reason is because NHRA has failed to release the schedule yet.
Yeah, it's all their fault.
No, but listen, I agree completely, and we must always replenish if we really like and care about this thing. And another benefit of watching you guys all together, and Ron Capps and J.R. Todd and otherwise, it's so clear that this is like a relay race in many ways, and it must be, taken care of. The sport of drag racing, motorsports in general, how everyone is kind of connected, even cross-platform motorsport. It's a hobby, but it's a passion. It's a race. It's its own thing that has all these different facets, like you just mentioned, and it needs to be replenished. We need the next generation to come in and be helped and be interested and want to do it. And as technology advances, with these guys down by you setting the record in the electric dragster, and we all know what happened, Tesla and SpaceX and Elon Musk, they've got electric cars. What's going to happen? But racing and being involved with vehicles and motion and acceleration, I think those are going to continue on for a long, long time. The specifics of what it will be, we don't know, but people are always going to want to accelerate rapidly, and they're going to want to see who's the quickest and who can do it the best and manage it the best, I think, for a long time.
Oh, I think until the end of time. The first automobile race, the old joke, right? The first automobile race was staged 10 minutes after they built the second car. And there is always going to be a passion for speed and a passion for performance in some of us. Not everybody's the same. There are plenty of people that look at a car as transportation. I literally have spoken to people, I bought a new car. Really? What kind of car did you get? Blue one. And okay. But there is a segment of people that's all they see the automobile as. That's fine. But there is always going to be a segment that wants one that, whether it's a little faster or a little shinier or a little blingier or a little, back when the import movement was a big thing. NHRA was very involved. There was a sport compact series for a while. And there were so many of the old hardcore, old line, that's not really racing, those things, those four-cylinders, they sound like crap, and they got these stupid mufflers, and that's not. Why not? How is that different from when you were 17 years old and you just cut the mufflers off your car? Or when you used to go out and buy a manifold or a carburetor or a set of headers, and these guys buy a chip, or, they buy one of those mufflers, or they buy something to try to improve the performance of their car. They're no different than us. Those are the cars they can afford. They're trying to make them faster. I was fortunate, I think, because when I was kind of coming of age, that was the time when muscle cars were kind of aging out, and they were affordable. My 67 Mustang GT, I bought for $1,800. You couldn't buy one for $1,800 today if it was on fire.
No.
Had been. Currently on fire.
Right.
But when you look at the kids that were running those imports and what they were doing with those were the cars they could afford. Those were the cars that fit into their budget, fit into their pocketbook. And then they set about going, how can I make it quicker? How can I make it shinier? How can I make it snazzier? Whatever. I don't care. If what you're into, you still have a passion to compete, right? My bass is going to be louder than the guy next to me. That's what I'm into. That's what I'm going to do. And that's what my passion. And that's always going to be there. Cars are going to change. Technology is going to evolve. But the desire for performance is always going to be there.
And that's what bonds us all together. And I wasn't a big import guy. I was an American muscle kind of guy, but I got where they were coming from. And you said it right. The people I knew, let's face it, their parents couldn't just buy them. We're talking, mid 80s, right? Couldn't just buy them a new Camaro SS, right? That was like 38 grand or 29 grand at the time, but they could get that Honda Civic for like $8,600. And next thing you know, they had the muffler, they had it lowered, they were doing stuff to personalize it, to make it their own. All right, we got a couple of questions out there. Lauren's got an interesting one. Just seeing you at the track, don't know much history, but what made Garlits the greatest of all time? I want to hear what you have to say, Alan. I got my idea of it, but Garlits as the greatest of all time, I think most people still agree that is the case. What do you say is the reason?
Innovation and determination, if I had to break it down to two words.
I was going to say innovation, yes.
Yeah, I mean, he came from an era when you couldn't just call Don Schumacher and order a ready-to-go race car. If you wanted something, you had to build it. And there were a lot of guys that had a lot of different ideas on how to do it. And he was also a rare breed that built the cars, built the engines, serviced them, and the amount of success that he had was pretty astounding. Obviously being the first one to make a rear engine dragster viable. He wasn't the first one to build one, but he was the first one to make it viable, and that obviously changed the sport forever. But just throughout the course of his career, doing the amount of stuff that he did with what he had, and he was never a huge budget kind of guy. Even in the days, the Kendall days and the days when he was getting help from the Navy and some of the stuff, he certainly had money to operate on, but he was never a huge budget guy. He was a guy that would go back in the shop or go back in the garage and just not quit until he figured it out. And I think that, that's a lot of the same ability that you saw in Bob Glidden when Bob Glidden started racing pro stock. And even though he was doing it different from everybody else, he was successful because he was so determined. He wasn't going to quit. He was going to work until he succeeded. They just didn't know how to stop, and just kept trying things until it worked. And I think that's a big part of Don's legacy. I'll never forget first time that I went back into his race shop, not the museum, but the race shop. And when we're getting ready to go in, and I said it actually in the video of my shop tour, we're standing outside. And he says, "Reinhart, you got to understand this before we go inside. This is a real working race shop. It ain't got no terrazzo floors and fancy decorations. It's a working shop." And I said, "I'm in. Let's go." And that's what it is. And he, to this day, has ideas and is determined to try things and to do things, the way that he wants them done. And God bless him. But I think innovation and determination, if I had to use two words.
I agree. Innovation and determination. I like that as well. As a kid, Garlits was a hero. Had seen him at Miami Hollywood, like pro racer, the Swamp Rat, Florida guy. So it was like our guy. And to see him, the story of taking the car off the museum floor and going out and winning the U.S. Nationals. Like, what is that? And, Garlits wasn't, he had his feuds with NHRA as well. Like a lot of those years, he was off doing his own thing. It was a different era back then, but just amazing how he was able to consistently come up with something new and beat all these guys that were always doing it. The Swamp Rat 30, the Streamliner, the Kevlar belts, Gator Nationals, 270 miles an hour, breaking these barriers and milestones. And that's one of the big bummers, I think. There are so many, obviously the loss of life being number one, but this coronavirus situation and the Gator Nationals is that Steve Torrance was going to run that Swamp Rat schemed car. And it was a surprise. They fired it up. Garlits was in there, and that would have been just such a fun subplot to the Gator Nationals. I know their intention is to run the scheme there anyway when we get back there. So something to look forward to, but there was just an energy around it, right? Everyone was excited to see a Swamp Rat car at the Gator Nationals on track. We still are, and we still will be. Speaking of coronavirus stuff, I'm happy we haven't spoken about it a lot. Good news, Jock out of the ICU. I don't know if you saw that video of him being removed and all of the essential workers clapping and applauding him for finally being awake and getting out. One of the best moments I've seen in a long time.
Yeah, that was pretty nice to see. One of the other things I think that, from the whole racers pulling together thing. No matter how much we quibble amongst our family, when we got a family member in trouble, Steve Johnson started a GoFundMe page just to kind of help Josh get back on his feet and stuff when he gets out of there. The original goal, I think, was $25,000, and in 2 days they were about 40,000.
Wow.
Because all of the racers, and there's some people that are left anonymous on there, but if you read down there, it's kind of the who's who, not just in the motorcycle community, but in the drag racing community, that were all pitching in a few bucks to help Chocolate. So look forward to him getting back into the track and back to 100% health. But I'll take directionally correct anytime.
Directionally correct. All right, here's one. Eric wants to know, given the large amount of streaming viewership of sportsman drag racing, do you think the NHRA will ever give greater coverage of the top dragster, top sportsman racing? Clearly, there's an audience for it. Thoughts? Greater coverage. I don't know. The coverage is...
they are on our live streams at all the national events. They obviously are a big part of the divisional regional scale. They got their T-shirt on today.
Yeah, look at that.
But
folks,
I'm not sure what he's looking for. If he's looking for something specifically dedicated to them, a specific TV show like that, I don't know of anything that's in the works. But they're certainly, when they're at the national events, every car that goes down a racetrack is part of the coverage on the live stream at least.
So here's what I would say, in that I know that Nikki, who does social media for NHRA, and we go out, Alan, and we try to find interesting things from the lanes, and we talk to drivers in the lanes, and so that is expanded coverage, so the likes of which you don't get in a lot of places, because top sportsmen and top dragster kind of run a little bit slower, and the drivers spend a fair amount of time getting ready. So we can go, we do interviews, we give them as much spotlight as we can generate. We show them in the burnout box. Maybe he's talking about top end interviews, or maybe he's talking about a separate show. And here's what I would say about that. The popularity of Street Outlaws, those guys, those cars, they're neat. But any category of NHRA drag racing, if it was the only focus, could be its own thing. Stock Eliminator could have its own show where we highlight personalities and cars and parts and feuds and Super Gas 990 index cars. You could find 8 to 10 amazing personalities, some that dislike each other, and feud and great battles and great races. It's just a matter of manpower and money and time and ability to do all of those things. We're blessed that we have so many interesting, amazing cars and personalities around us at all times. Some of them go 330 miles an hour with fire flying out of the sides, and they tend to get the most attention and draw the most attention.
True. I mean, but that's what we pride ourselves on in NHRA. We got something for everybody, all the way literally from the junior dragster ranks up to the top fuel ranks. And the fact that you can go to one event and see them all, and that's something you can't do anywhere else. I love NASCAR. I'm not bagging on them. But you can't go to a NASCAR race and see everything from quarter midgets to ASA to, the entire ladder all the way up to the Cup cars. But if you can go to an NHRA event, you can see everything from junior dragster to stock eliminator to the .90 categories to top dragster sportsmen to motorcycles to pro stock to funny car, and oftentimes even a jet car or two. So that's one of the things that NHRA prides themselves on, is that you can come to an event and see a little bit of everything. What that makes it difficult to do is to put focus on everybody that deserves it. I mean, when NASCAR runs a weekend where they run the trucks and the Xfinity and the Cup, they're 3 separate events. So the trucks are the spotlight for one event. The Xfinity cars are spotlight, Cup is. When we run an event, all cars are on the racetrack at the same day. And you can't break that down into 12 different things. So that's why stuff kind of gets grouped together. One thing we always do when we're running the alcohol cars, the final rounds always show on the Sportsman show, on the Lucas Oil show. So, you get exposure there if you win rounds. And that's the part of, you kind of got to earn it. But, the opportunity is there for everybody.
Eric, he elaborates in that. Love the live stream coverage. You guys do a great job on TV, though. It seems like they only show the finals. You're on it too, Joe. More highlighting of the drivers. Yes. And that's it. Like, limited real estate on the TV show. That's why you get the live stream. And NHRA.TV has done a great job, I think, over the years, following those stories, making those drivers celebrities, the parade of champions. When somebody wins, you get to see them, you get to know them, what was on their mind, as much as we can in the time that we have, based on that. Chuck wants to know your favorite track and who has the best fans, keeping in mind Brainerd is my home track since I moved to Vegas, since I recently moved to Vegas earlier this year.
Well, my favorite track, you can go into the archives and find this every time that question comes up. Vandermeer.
Vandermeer.
A couple of reasons. One, the family that runs it is spectacular, and that makes the experience better for the fan. Two, just the way the track is laid out. Carved into the side of the mountain with the grandstands going up the mountain, the pits being elevated, I think that's spectacular. The top eliminator seat in Reinhart or in Vandermeer might be the best chair in drag race. I mean, when you're sitting there watching the event, I don't know that there's a better seat anywhere in any stadium than the top eliminator club at Vandermeer. And the fourth one is because it's 5,800 feet of physical altitude, and sometimes the density altitude has been known to go over 10,000 feet. It ain't easy to win. If you leave there with a trophy, you earned the trophy. And I think that's something else that makes it special. But I've told people for years, hey, I'm going to plan a vacation. I want to go see a new track. I want to go something different. Go to Vandermeer.
Well, he told me that for years, everybody. And of course, Reinhart says some things, but you can't always act on those things. Like, oh, Alan, that would be great. But and so the first time I ever went to Vandermeer, he gave me the whole tour and everything. We were on our way to the Golden Block Party, which is a big part of it. There's this big, wonderful event the day before the race, and you got to go for that. And we went up there and we sat in the top eliminator seats and we walked the track, and it was spectacular. But it was a two-part question, and I'm going to add a different answer. The best fans. I don't know about the best fans, but I can tell you, I think the loudest fans are at Bristol. What do you think about that? They are always yelling, like they are loud drag racing fans, uncharacteristically loud. There's the lady that loved Alan Johnson for all those years that showed up. they got some diehard loud fans in Bristol.
They do. They also have an acoustical advantage of the racetrack being down in a valley there. So that may make them seem louder. I don't know that I could pick out a best fans anywhere. They're different, and just like the different racetracks have different personalities. If you want to just hardcore, knowledgeable, just put the damn cars on the track and show me what you got, you'd be hard pressed to find better hardcore fans than Englishtown had. And that's a fact. The fans that come to Gainesville are, I don't want to say unique, but because Gainesville is a destination race, there are a lot of people that come down to Gainesville to see a particular class or a particular category. One thing that you mentioned, the Bristol fans, I think more than any place else on tour, the Bristol fans watch the whole race. There are a number of races we go to where, once the pros are done, the grandstand is basically empty. And at Bristol, I would venture to say that probably 50% or more stay. They will sit there and watch stock or super gas or whatever's on the racetrack because, you know what, I came to watch the race and I'm going to sit here and watch the race. So, they're just different. The Las Vegas fans are plenty boisterous, but a lot of them are also in Las Vegas as, let's just say they have mixed reasons for being in the city that time. The Pomona fans, that's where drag racing basically arguably started. They're as strong as it gets. The Canadian fans, when they come down to Seattle, again, I could go on and on. I mean, they're all unique. I don't know that I could pick a best fans. I guess, let's see. Who cheers loudest when they say, okay, now for pre-race ceremonies, here's Alan Reinhart?
Yes.
Probably Phoenix. So let's go with Phoenix.
Go with Phoenix.
That being my home track. So, but no, there's good fans everywhere. Let me put it to you this way. There's not one place where we go where I say to myself, oh, geez, we got to put up with those fans again. Topeka. How many times have we had the conversation about Topeka? At the racetrack, the fans are a long ways back. They don't get quite the intimate experience that you get at a Bristol or at some of the other tracks just because of the layout of the place. But you can't go anywhere in Topeka. I mean, you go to Walgreens and somebody goes, you here for the races?
Yes.
One of the teams, what's your deal? Everywhere you go, the whole community is so solidly behind the race. That's pretty hardcore fans. Again, I don't know I don't know that I'm going to put one above the other, but we just have great fans, and I'm going to slide out that way.
Well, no, but it's smart in that that's why, and we've seen it now. There are people who go to 4 or 5 or 10. There's people who go, if you can go to 10 or 15 races, you obviously got a lot of free time and you can take time off of work, or you've got some sort of passive income strategy that's working great. You really should tell me about it, because I would like to do that too. But that's a different story for a different day. But the fans are blocking out 2 or 3 tracks each year to go to. We're going to hit these 3. We're going to hit these 3. We're going to hit these 3 and get the experience. And everyone is totally unique for what it brings. You mentioned Topeka, it's the only game in town. And so drag racers are rock stars and they're everywhere. It's pretty amazing. This guy wants to know, how about us fans at Route 66 in Joliet? Terrible. The worst. The worst, Randy. You guys are the worst, Randy. No, I'm kidding. I just don't want to be all totally positive. I like Route 66. Place to see. It's a palace. It's a fantastic facility.
It is definitely that. No question about it. No, we have great hardcore fans everywhere we go. And again, I'm not going to choose one over the other. There are so many places that have, the unique experience. The gentleman that asked the question, I think you said, was from Brainerd. Brainerd. I mean, what do you think of when you think Brainerd? We're going to spend the night in the zoo, right? We're going to go out for a cruise. We're going to go out and just kind of mix and mingle and hang out with the fans for a few hours. That is unique to Brainerd. There are a lot of things that are unique to the various tracks. When you mentioned Bristol, the fact that they do the coffee and donut track walk as well as the big pro autograph session that the track puts together. And that's Saturday night after the races are over. They get all the drivers to come out and line the tables up and greet the fans. And that's unique to Bristol. So, there are a lot of different racetracks that do their own unique thing. None of them are bad. They're just, they're all great fans. And no, love Route 66. That's Route 66. The first time I went to Route 66, when we were going up there, it was the first national event ever. The racetrack was brand new. I went in early, I had a press conference to do, and got to the racetrack, and whatever it was, Wednesday noon, I think, or maybe it was Tuesday even. And we went in and we had just a big round table. Went into the conference room, and there's 30 of us in the room or whatever. And literally, we didn't know each other. It's the first time we'd been there. So the guy from the racetrack said, okay, here's the deal. We're going to go around the table. Everybody introduce yourself, what you do, why would we come to you? What you're in control of, what you're doing. And so everybody's going around the table and it's like, hey, I'm in charge of ticketing, and hey, I'm in charge of this, and, hey, I'm the announcer, and hey, I'm in charge of safety. And we got to the guy that was in charge of security. And he was also the police chief of Joliet. And he said, he had a lot of his officers were going to be out there working, just doing the thing on the side. But he said, hey, I'm the guy to come to. He goes, if you have any issues at the racetrack, or even if you have any legal issues around here, he says, you give me a call and we'll straighten it out for you. And I went, excuse me, business card, please. The first time I ever had a get out of jail free card. And the guy literally gave me a business card, wrote a cell phone on the back of it. He said, if nobody's dead, call me. Up until then, I could probably help you out. And I went, never needed it, but I figured that was the first time in my life I ever actually had a get out of jail free card in my pocket.
Now it's nice. You know what else is, it's just interesting in that how much, I know you never took this for granted, Alan, because, your hashtag and love this life and all that stuff. But, at some point it all blurs together. But now starting to see people go back racing, the idea that there's going to be the schedule modification coming out hopefully soon. The idea of getting back to that racing and seeing fans at whatever percentage is possible, drag racers on track, burning nitro, crew chiefs working on aerodynamics in wind tunnels, really eager and appreciative of what it is. And I kind of think that when we get to the point where people feel comfortable again, like it's time to go back, I am hoping we're going to see a resurgence, like all those fans who, like, I think you mentioned a couple weeks ago, the drag race. Yeah, it's fun, but I'm busy. Right. I got stuff I got to do. I think people are going to come back to the track. I think people are going to reconnect with this sport in a big way because they've realized what it could be like without it. Like we've all experienced a time where there was question.
I agree with that. I think that, a lot of it, I think, is going to be we want to come back because we missed it. And there's one thing when you always know, oh, there's going to be another one next week, or yeah, we can always do that, next year. And then the realization that, what, nothing is guaranteed really. Maybe you need to take advantage of this stuff while you can. I also think that there's going to be a lot of people that have just been cooped up for so long that they're looking forward to getting out of the house. So I'm looking forward to that as well. But no, I think that, once we're allowed to do it, that I agree. I think that, we're going to see pretty strong fans, because I think they realize that they missed it and they want to come back out and they want to join and they want to support, and we'll certainly take it. I mean, one thing that I've been doing this for 25 years at least, and started a long time ago. I was having a not particularly good day, let's just say. I think I had probably gone out Friday night or Saturday night and maybe indulged a little bit, and I just wasn't having a great. And I think it was Dave McClellan that kind of drugged me off to the side, and he said, "Hey," and I said, "No, well, and he said, "Not for them." And it made me realize that, kind of like if you're in a rock band, okay, and you're touring, and you go out and you're going to play, 10 days in a row. If you have an off night on Thursday, it's like, yeah, well, we had an off night, it's no big deal. But for the people that were there on Thursday, they saw a lousy show. And I just never want the fans to go through that because of me. I literally, at least once every week, take a minute, look at the people in the grandstands, and realize that these people spent a lot of money to come see this show. Maybe took time off work, maybe took vacation, maybe this is their one race a year, maybe this is their first time. And I always want to make sure that they're getting the best effort that I've got for them. And, a lot of the racers, I think, have the same mentality. But that's kind of the way that I approach it. And I think when I get back, I'm going to feel even more strongly that, look, it's really important for us to put a great show on for these people, because they've been waiting, they've been cooped up, they've been locked down, they've been whatever, and we need to make sure that we put on a great show for them, remind them what we're all about, and then hopefully, get them coming back over and over. But every single week, at some point, I take a minute and realize this might be the only drag race these people see, and we need to make it the best drag race we can for them.
Absolutely. And I agree. That was, part of my the walking tour strategy, right? Like, you get one chance to hook these people in and bring them in and show them something. And the drivers were so great trying to bring these people into this world that everybody loves so much. They come back over and over again and want to make it part of their lives. These junior dragster kids make it part of their lives, and you get one opportunity to hook those people in, and some you do, and many you don't. But it is what it is, and we keep on trying. Alan, great job as usual. Any final thoughts? Anything on your mind? This has kind of been just kind of a meandering conversation as we start the week. I do hope, as you mentioned, that we can dial in the schedule and have some certainty, or at least the latest plan, which we all know that the plans are going to change, and we get that. But what is the newest version of the plan that we can think about and wonder about? But did you have anything else you wanted to throw out there?
Well, one thing I can tell you for sure, while we are still waiting to hear what the ultimate plan is for the Mellow Yellow Series and the Pro Series, things are starting to happen again. We had the race down in Dallas a couple of weeks ago. This weekend in Atlanta, they're going to have the Lucas Oil Series down there. They also have a Lucas event in Oklahoma this weekend. So we are starting to get back to business now. As far as fans, what isn't allowed, what I honestly don't know that. You can contact the racetrack and get the up-to-minute information from them. But, we are starting to get back to business in the Lucas Series. I know that there's a race scheduled in Epping coming up in a couple of weeks. It's going to be a big regional. There's also one in Lebanon Valley that looks like it's going to happen and in July as well. So, or end of June, I guess, as well. Actually, that's July 4th weekend. Anyway, but we are starting to get back to racing on a little bit smaller scale. We still don't have the Mellow Yellow schedule, but it's starting to happen. And if your local track is doing something, support them, because they're struggling through this time. I don't know if you saw that Chris Blair is going to do some drive-in movie nights at Gateway. He's talking about doing some concert stuff, and it's going to be all tailgate based, right? Drive in your car, set up your barbecue, park 10 feet from the next guy, and the show's going to be over there. And just something to A, reach out to the community and remind them that the racetrack is still here, and B, to get a little something going for the racetrack, because, just because they're not allowed to hold events and just because they're not selling their normal racetrack ticket doesn't mean that they don't have rent to pay and they don't have other bills, they don't have things going on. So, I think the biggest thing is to support the racetrack when you can. Matt here at Tucson Dragway has gotten started going back into doing some bracket racing and doing some other stuff. We had the drive-in movie nights and some other things that he was doing, but there's a lot of activity at a lot of local tracks in your neighborhood, and you can probably find a way to support them if you really want to. And believe me, they need it and they would appreciate it.
I think June 13th is the first night of bracket racing at Palm Beach. And I have entertained the idea of going out there in the GTO. So if anybody out there has got information on how to make a bone stock LS2 as consistent as possible, I would like to receive that information, like temperature, starting line temperature, launch RPM, automatic, 2005 GTOs. My dad's car's got 12,000 miles on it, Alan, but it's perfect for this kind of thing. I would like to go up there and maybe run a little street. What do you think?
I think you should. Absolutely. No, I think, A, getting out of the house, right? And B, supporting a racetrack that's been shut down for a while. No, I'm all in. I've been going out and help Matt doing the Hot Wheels races and doing the stuff out there, just trying to, pitch a hand. And they actually had, and you talk about tracks pulling together. Las Vegas had a big event scheduled last weekend that they simply couldn't run, and they transferred it down here to Tucson. And even Jeff Foster came down to make sure, that the event ran smoothly and that there weren't any issues. But that's, the racers want to go racing. And even though Jeff wasn't able to open his doors and profit from, not because he didn't want to, just because of, the way things are in his region right now, but, went out of his way to be able to move the race, to be able so the racers could still get out. Yeah, okay, it's a few hundred extra miles, but most of the people that are running that are driving anyway. And at least it got them a chance to get on track. So, there are things happening out there at your local racetrack. If you just kind of reach out, check their social media or their website, I'm sure you can find a way that you can get involved, even if it is just taking your dad's car out. How many of us started drag racing, right? A dad's car.
That's it. Got to drive dad's car. Exactly. And the thing, it's a nice little car. It goes pretty good. Hey, real quick, the day of Nitro this past Saturday, 3:00, I was playing golf and I was watching SpaceX, but I saw Ron Capps and others participated, a lot of Nitro fire-ups, and just a nice event to get things going in a downtime on that particular day because of the SpaceX launch. I think a lot of people were focused on that as well, but still a good event.
Yeah, once again, drag racing gets screwed over by a guy that makes electric cars. Come on, man. No, no, it was. I saw some of the highlights of it, but no, I think it was a terrific event. Blake and the guys up there at Auto Club Raceway in Famoso came up with the idea, and they kind of floated it out there, and a lot of people that want to get involved. But that's a reminder for the fans that we want to get out there and race. We want to do this as bad as you want to see us do it. We just need to get everything in place first so that we can go do it. And hopefully that'll be soon.
Alan, great job as usual. Thank you so much. Really appreciate it. Next week, I'm pretty confident we're going to have the latest plan to discuss. Yes, exactly. The latest plan to discuss. And hopefully everybody keeps doing their thing, do what they're asked to do, comply, and we'll be back racing soon.
Awesome. Shop Talk tomorrow on NHRA. 3:00 Eastern, noon out on the West Coast. Loans and I, we are going to talk connecting rods, everything from stock eliminator to top fuel and anything else that we can come up with. So if you have any interest in that, tune in tomorrow at any one of NHRA's social channels for Shop Talk Live.
Awesome. Alan, thank you so much. We'll be watching.
Thanks. Talk to you soon.
NHRA's Alan Reinhart. And I love those are some of my favorite conversations, winners to talk about or technical stuff, just kind of a, state of the world kind of thing. Hey, Rosalie is out there. Rosalie does a lot of great things with Draw and just giving us some information. Coles County Dragway USA is opening to spectators this weekend, still practicing social distancing and mask if you feel you need it. They had successful test and tunes, and we all did our best to do what we needed to do. So now the public is being invited in. Okay, and so let me just piggyback on that. Like, I don't want to yell at anybody, but if you feel you need it, but it's not about wearing the mask is not about you. That's the thing that is important to remember. It's not for you. It's not to protect you. The whole point of the mask is you have to assume that you've got the virus. And if you're not wearing the mask, you're going to infect other people. And that's what people are failing to understand. And I'm not yelling at people. It's just, this is the way it is. And this is how it works, is if you wear the mask, you're not going to infect other people. Wearing the mask is not there to protect you. But if I see you with the mask and I have the mask, it's mutual respect. Like, you're protecting me, I'm protecting you, and then we can go about our business. And plus, you can have this fantastic WFO logo right over your mug, right? And a lot of us need to cover the mug anyway. Anyway, thank you, Rosalie. I appreciate that. And I would like to go back racing as soon as is possible. And hopefully that new schedule drops real soon. And actually, I've heard some rumors about when it's supposed to come. And Alan would know that kind of stuff. But I'm clicking refresh every once in a while, because as soon as we start to wrap up the show, that's they're going to drop it. They've done that just thousands of times. And then they sit back and laugh. Quick reminder, a couple of things. If you want WFO radio stickers, Castello Media, P.O. Box 848-353, Pembroke Pines, Florida, 33084. Also, if you want t-shirts, Nitro Fish Racing has got a special promo code for you, WFO radio listeners, WFO20. WFO20, you go to nitrofishracing.com, and that promo code, you can get a WFO Radio 10th Anniversary Podcast t-shirt. You can get the Erica Enders 3-time world champion t-shirt, or any of their t-shirts at nitrofishracing.com. So go there now and use the promo code WFO20. And it's Randy Lynn who is the one who had these masks made. And we've been sending them out to our Patreons, patreon.com/WFO radio. Those folks, everybody who supports the show directly, they're getting the masks and starting to tweet out photos of themselves with the mask on. And if that's the only time they wear the mask, that's perfect for me. We really appreciate what you're doing. And it has been, we talked about it on the Ignition show this week, the audio only podcast show, that is a little silky, a little kind of shiny, a little satiny, kind of, a little more questionable than some of the other masks out there, but whatever. That's, no big deal. Do your thing. Let's see. Jeff says, my brother raced there last week. Great place. Just got to keep our sport alive. Got to keep these companies alive. Got to keep these people and this culture that is motorsports and drag racing in particular alive. And you can do it by supporting the people who support the sport. In our case, I think about Marvin Rodak and the coffee and spice rub and everything he does that is so great, roasted fresh per your order. And this bag is about to leave the studio, people, just so you know, because I am about to roast up or brew up a little Rodak's coffee myself. The WFO radio blend, Marvin Rodak doing tremendous things, but the habanero endorphin booster, the hot sauces, the spice rubs. He sells grills. If you're down there in Fort Worth, Texas, by all means, check out Marvin. Also, Total Seal piston rings, the leader in ring seal technology. Remember, Thursday, I would run and subscribe right now. Thursday, Mark Cronquist, head engine builder, Joe Gibbs Racing, Lake Speed Jr., in a wide-ranging conversation. They are personal friends, and I was very entertained. I am the guy who, gets the show going, and I'm very fortunate to do that. But if there was awards, I think this show could maybe win one because of the conversation about how many engines they would build in a year and some of the different things they would do to explore what's possible in piston ring technology and how to make horsepower. And that's the whole point about it, hidden horsepower. It's a really interesting show. And the folks at Total Seal Piston Rings doing a lot of great things for racers out there during this period. Excellent work. Also, want to welcome new weekly sponsor. They're on board. And this week, we're going to hear from Robin Lawrence from Holly Performance Products. They've been doing it for over 100 years. But what has been the best part about it, speaking about innovation, is that, of course, everybody remembers the first Holly carburetor they bought. It was a 750 double pumper for my father. And I was super excited to open the box and play with the stickers. And then we got a 9375 Dominator on our 1978 Pontiac Trans Am. But nowadays, it's the electronic fuel injection systems that make it easy. The idea that the weather conditions have changed outside and you've got a hot rod car or a project car, and now you're going to, you don't want to choke it. That doesn't happen anymore. It works just like an aftermarket vehicle. It just learns. And so classic cars with modern fuel injection systems, that's the way of the world. With Holley, they've got all these great events, LS Fest, etc., where they're bringing together communities, and they've done a great job. And many other companies under the Holley banner, we're happy to have them. And it's been amazing to learn what I've already learned about what they are doing. But on Thursday, Robin Lawrence is going to be on the show, and we'll learn a little more about Holley Performance products. Very, very cool. Samtech.edu, the School of Automotive Machinists and Technology. Brian Massengill. We're waiting for the schedule to break out the newest episode of Factory Stock Podcast, which is going to be a redux. We're just going to do it again. The Gator Nationals preview edition again. And, Mark Powick and Drew Skillman, they'll all be on again, and we're going to find out how they used this time wisely. I can tell you before the Gator Nationals, people were talking about how the Dodgers didn't have their parts. Do they have their parts now? I don't know. In the end, though, it's an exercise so that young people who are looking for a career, for a passion that they can follow through the rest of their lives, know that Samtech can help them get there. 1985, where they were established. Samtech.edu. Go to the website, tell them you heard about it on WFO Radio, and explore. They've got many, many great things. And, of course, Frank and Lana Hawley. Frank Hawley's drag racing school. We've got an actual school, and we've got a drag racing school, all helping you get better. And I've won many, many bracket races, and I'm very fortunate. That was in another century. I haven't won a bracket race this century. Maybe I can pull it together again, although judging by the competition out there, I highly doubt it. But Frank and Lana Hawley can get you going in the right direction. And speaking of the right direction, all you LS2 people out there, let's be straight now. All you people out there, bracket racers. Anybody got a street LS2 that you can tell me a couple of things to do to make this thing a little more consistent? Like, where do you launch, and operating temperature? Should I start off, should I go as hot as possible? Should I cool it down between rounds? These kind of things. If I'm going to go to one bracket race, it's going to be great, because nobody will really know me, and they'll think I don't know what I'm doing, and I can look like I don't know I know what I'm doing really easily. It's a talent I have to look clueless. And so I'll be the guy that goes in there, looks clueless, and, try to go a couple of rounds. Who knows? Off the bottom. You can follow along at WFO Joe. That's me. Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, of course, our Facebook page. Subscribe and write a review for our podcast, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, SoundCloud. Subscribe, write a review, share, tell your friends. That's the way we grow, the only way we grow. Simple as that. The YouTube channel, getting more subscribers. People are watching right now on the YouTube channel. We're going to reorganize the page. We got some of our old content on there that I've been going back, looking at, checking out views. Our biggest video, though, is an experimental thing I did at the Miami Metro Zoo with Ron McGill. This elephant roared at us, and I put it up there, and it's got hundreds of thousands of views because it's an elephant roaring. It's just kind of funny how YouTube works. Steve Brenwald Media creates all our graphic arts and does some cool things like the Gary Selzy Happy Hour logo. And speaking of that is available on our Facebook page and in the WFO Radio app, along with the John Force show. And Force was incredible, but Selzy, we had Ron Capps, we had Chad Head, if you guys are adverse to profanity, mild profanity, don't watch, because it was raw. It was a real happy hour. It was just fun and excitement and stories and cutting up and greatness. And I know not everybody has watched it. I recommend you watch it. 4 p.m. today, say. Maybe we'll do a watch party at some point. But I really appreciate Gary Selzy. And you might be thinking about, well, what about happy hour this week? Who's going to be on? It's like an every other week thing. Courtney Enders, Jason Logan are going to be the co-hosts. They come on, they spend time with us, and whoever else we fill the spot with will come on, and we'll have a little fun. and we'll enjoy beverages starting at 4 p.m. Eastern time. Courtney, Jason Logan, and myself. Jason was at the SpaceX launch. I think he's going to have some interesting stories. Not as interesting as this, but interesting stories. So definitely join us. Set a reminder for 4 p.m. Eastern. We've got a big show planned, a big week planned, and it is going to be a whole lot of fun. I am absolutely thrilled that we have gone so well during this period. Innovating, new shows, new content, old shows, old content. Thanks to Alan Reinhart for the conversation. Thanks to you WFO radio listeners out there for spending a little time with us. Peruse the Facebook page. Find that Selzy show. John Force has agreed to come on to spend time. He says he's not going to have a beverage. He's planning for his own talk show that he'll be having on in the future. Again, WFO radio stickers. If you're out there, you want stickers, and maybe I'll throw in a mask in this next batch. WFO radio stickers / mask. If you put it on there, I'll send you one of these for free. But leave me room in the envelope. If you don't leave me room in the envelope, I can't send the stickers. I can't send the stickers if you don't leave me room in the envelope. Simple as that. P.O. Box 848-353, Pembroke Pines, Florida, 33084. Glad you are following my recommendations for co-hosts. Am I? Did I? Did you put that in my brain? Which one? Selzy? Whatever, man. Keep them coming, Jeff. Keep them coming, Jeff. Give me another one for Thursday. Give me another one for Thursday. Actually, I think Sean Bellamere and Alan Reinhart mentioned Selzy. And I think maybe you mentioned Selzy, and you were a third-party validator, and we locked it in. And Selzy was like, yes. So definitely get out there and see it. It's really good. Anyway, that's going to do it. Thanks to all you folks out there, drag racing community. Really appreciate you. And we'll see you next time right here on WFO Radio.